Welcome to the Real Estate Espresso Podcast, your morning shot of what's new in the world of real estate investing. I'm your host, Victor Menashe. On today's show, we're talking about how to value engineer a project. We're going to look at a project that has a firm bid on it. Overall, the construction bids seem to be fairly reasonable in terms of total price per square foot. Having said that, there could still be problems in that bid. Some line items might be too high and others might be too low. One of the most common mistakes is to accept a total price merely because the overall price seems to be in the ballpark. When we conduct a budget review, we look at every single line item. And when problems occur in a project, it's often because the scope of the work has an error in it. We double-check the contractor's numbers of every single component in the project. We use material estimating software that measures the dimensions for all of the major materials used in the architectural drawings. We measure the roof area, the wall area, the number of electrical fixtures, all the doors. You get the idea. There's literally hundreds of line items that could be estimated. It's in this process that we find errors. We reviewed a project budget only to discover that several line items were completely missing from the scope of work. The project in question is a new construction storage facility consisting of 56,000 square feet of climate-controlled storage and more than another 30,000 square feet of not climate-controlled. Storage facilities don't have a huge requirement for plumbing. There's 2 bathrooms for use by staff and customers. Naturally, the estimate of $80,000 in cost for plumbing deserves additional scrutiny. The project has slightly over $1 million in cost associated with site work. Here too, this line item requires additional scrutiny. What is the specification of the work? How much stone, sand, gravel, and fill are needed? Has the quality of the soil been assessed with a geotechnical survey? And how much will be imported? How much is going to be exported? And how much dirt is going to be moved on site? Oftentimes, the site work subcontractor assumes that they're going to strip the site, remove the top layer of soil, discard that, and then import all of the needed soil, the sand and gravel that's going to be needed for the final grading of the site. In our case, we're digging 2 stormwater detention ponds. It's possible that by digging down, we can often find pristine, undisturbed soil that would make an excellent base for construction. By digging the detention pond deeper than necessary, we can mine the site for good material and save a lot on transportation costs. We can then deposit the unwanted surface material in the bottom of the detention pond where the structural stability of the soil is not important. And this too will save a lot on transportation costs. See, often the subcontractor will specify an easy approach instead of taking the cost-effective approach, and you don't know what you're getting unless you ask the questions. We had an estimate of $600,000 for electrical work. The majority of the power requirements in the entire facility are for lighting and for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. The relatively small office and retail space has pretty modest power requirements. There's already a pad-mounted transformer on the property. So when we perform the estimate of the lighting requirements, we can account for about $200,000 worth of cost. That leaves $400,000 for wiring to the heating and ventilation system and for the few electrical outlets that will be required throughout the property. And that number seems high. So we're going to, again, dig in and look at the electrical scope in a lot more detail. Now, the wiring is going to be armored cable, which is more expensive than standard Romex wiring like you would have in a residential building, but nevertheless, the scope warrants additional scrutiny. There might be features in your project that are optional. Maybe they could be removed from the scope. That's a product design decision, and you need to weigh the cost versus the benefit of that particular feature. See, the people performing the estimates are not perfect, even with the best of intentions and the best due diligence. They're still human and they can make mistakes. The discussion with the contractor is based on agreeing to a profit margin for the contractor up front, and you're going to make them know that you're there to protect that margin. You're not here to twist the contractor's arm and squeeze the profit unless they're asking for too high a profit margin. In that case, you may twist their arm. But the process is based on transparency, where we make sure that the scope is correctly estimated at the start of the project. If we want to reduce costs, then we can focus on getting additional material quotes from alternate suppliers. We can substitute materials and components that save cost, or maybe they're packaged in a different way that saves cost. We do this routinely, and as long as we understand the specifications, we can make trade-offs between function, cost, visual aesthetic, product lifespan, and so on. But if you don't have the conversation, then you're being robbed of the ability to make those decisions. You're also likely to have a project that is full of errors in scope. Now, some contractors don't like the idea of digging into the details. They're actually offended if you ask. They worry that you're going to shop the project to somebody else. Now, this is usually a trust issue that can be overcome with a bit of structure and some relationship building. If you're going to be managing construction projects, digging into the details is absolutely essential. As you think about that, have an awesome rest of your day. Go make some great things happen. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.